Welcome to the Perchance Podcast. I'm Noah. I'm here with Ethan Christian and Matt G, and we're going to be going over sports betting and gambling as a whole. So, just briefly, we're going to start with introducing the topic. Then, we're going to go into detail about some pro athletes who have been involved in scandals of both gambling and sports betting. And then, we're also going to go into detail on how companies grab the attention of their audience, specifically with deals, promos, celebrity endorsements, advertisements, etc. Then we're also going to talk about how the problems of sports gambling, how they're immoral, how they don't relate to Catholic teaching. And then we're also going to have a special interview with a former gambling addict and look at how Christ kind of changed his life for him. So we're just start with Ethan. Ethan, can you just kind of introduce the topic of sports gambling?
Yeah, no. So sports gambling is pretty much just when people, ordinary people, just put money on the line for games, whether it be NBA games, NFL games, or even like overseas cricket games that people don't even watch. People would rather put money onto these games than watch the sport, and that's really how it's becoming a problem today.
Yeah, and I think another important thing to that is there's multiple different sports betting apps out there. You got DraftKings, FanDuel, Sleeper, all kind of specialize in different things that just kind of make,
Yeah.
sports betting this kind of worldwide, not worldwide, but mainly an issue in the US where it's so accessible to people. There's so many different options that it just kind of been a major issue, especially in the past 5 years.
That's
Good point,
correct. And
Matt G.
an
Yeah.
interesting statistic here is just under half of all American adults, about 46%, have placed at least one sports betting online wager in the past year.
That's
Now, if when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, just grazing over it briefly, it doesn't really, it's like whatever, it's just something casual. But you don't realize how many of those adults have gone further and placed more than one bet and have kind of stumbled into an addiction because it actually says 31 of American adult sports bettors place at least one bet per week. Um, and from there it just goes on and on with multiple bets a week to multiple bets a day to even micro bets in between games and you just kind of stumble into that pitfall of misery the more and more you bet.
Yeah, not
So
only
Matt
that.
G,
Oh, sorry,
yeah,
what were you gonna say?
no, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, anyways, what I was gonna say is that not only is it just regular people that are making these bets, but the athletes that be playing these games also are making bets as well. I think one of the biggest cases, it's been all over the news as of recently. Everybody knows about it. Shohei Ohtani, man, and him and what's been going on with his interpreter, how he was like found to be placing bets. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely been a big thing. Turn on 849, ESPN. You see it like headlines everywhere about it. It's kind of been interesting though, because they're saying that his interpreter is placing the bets. Some people say that Shohei is having his interpreter place them for him. And it's crazy because Shohei just signed a $700 million deal. And someone of that high of a stature is like placing these bets and pretty much putting his career at risk. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah, I
sure.
do.
No, no,
Sorry, I was just gonna say I do agree with that, and I also think that because Otani is such a big figure in the sporting world, not just baseball, but in the grand scheme, throughout the world, he's just such an influential figure that you think just he's betting on sports games. Is he betting on his own games? What could happen as a result of that? Is he rigging his games? Is he benefiting from this? We've seen instances of people, let's say he's taking the under on innings pitched and he knows he's gonna get pulled out in the sixth inning and it's under 6.5. He's gonna bet $1 million on that, so make some money.
Yep.
And you
Yep.
just gotta think, is it really ethical to kind of just make money off of something you already know? Like, Ethan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely not ethical because when players do this, especially like Otani, they're putting the game that they love at risk and they're putting money first. The first commandment, it says, put God above everything else. I'm your one God. And when you sports bet and you pretty much put your whole life on this, it puts money first instead of God, which isn't what you should focus on. And I think some people are going to learn that the hard way.
I mean, yeah, I think one of the most interesting things about athletes and gambling is when you got one of the biggest faces in all of sports of all time, Michael Jordan, right? Everyone knows about his big gambling issue. I mean, what do you guys think about that? And how has that kind of affected the modern day age of sports gambling?
Ethan?
I think, you know, he had a very successful career, but he had a little hiatus in there. Many people think that he was forced out of the league for his gambling problems and how it affected the game. People thought he would be betting on himself, betting on other NBA games. He, Everybody just thought he was addicted and it was too much of a problem. So David Stern decided to make him take a league of absence, and he obviously came back later to win three more championships. But there was definitely a lot going on in there, and it was pretty concerning.
Yeah, and to your point, even though his gambling wasn't just entirely sports gambling, it still played a really, really big role in his life and almost kind of encapsulated his life as a whole. I mean, we know that he was betting on golf games, he was betting on, fun pickup games with his friends. But it just kind of like ran his life and it controlled his life and everything that he wanted to do, he wanted to gamble, he wanted to bet on things. And I just, I just think that's not a great way to live.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
I
it
think.
really focuses on. Oh, go on, Matt.
Oh no, Ethan, you got it. I'll can wrap up.
Sure, sure. I think it shows that some people really focus on level one and level two happiness and really just the material things and not really for anything greater than that. Money and fame and wealth is all you search for. You're not going to find any happiness. And I think that he learned that and other people would as well.
Yeah, I mean, kind of to bounce back to you, Ethan. I know you're pretty well knowledgeable in this. I think Noah might know a bit about this too, but I think another big one is Phil Mickelson, right? That's another huge
Yeah,
topic
yeah,
when it comes to sports betting and
Absolutely,
athletes.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as a huge golfer myself, Phil Mickelson I've really looked up to as an athlete, just, mastering his game, but to the fact that he's gambled over more than $1 billion over the last 30 years is just unreal. And at least over half a billion has been on sports betting itself, which I think is just absolutely unreal.
yeah. As well, he spent over $400,000 on the Ryder Cup in 2012, I believe, which he in fact participated in. And it just goes to show that it's the gambling problem is so widespread that it affects players in their own game.
Yeah, and I think the craziest thing too is you don't even gotta these players a lot of times, even if they aren't betting on it, they're still aware and it kind of affects their game. I mean, just recently a quote from Celtics star Jason Tatum came out that he said that he kind of feels bad when he messes up people's parlays. And it kind of creates like this toxic mentality for these athletes because now all of a sudden they're not just playing for themselves, they're not just playing for their team, but they also feel the pressure of the fans. I mean, I think I remember one time in specific. Alexander Madison, I remember back in when football was happening, um, had like a bad game where he had multiple fumbles and received death threats from people because he messed up their parlays and stuff like that. And I think that's just kind of sports betting as a whole is kind of creating a toxic behavior when it comes to this culture of sports now. And it's interesting to think about how it can be so negative and be like, whoa, how do these companies kind of bring in this audience and bring in these like consumers? And I mean, I know Noah's done a lot of research into this, so take it away.
Yeah, I just think it's despicable the fact that people are letting sports gambling just absolutely ruin their lives. And you're looking here's another athlete, Calvin Ridley, and he's placed
Yeah,
bets
for sure.
not just on, any other games. He's placed bet on football games that he's participated in. And they weren't really big games. Yeah, sorry, they weren't really big bets. They were only $100 wagers. But he won. He won those bets. He made over 700 bucks. And I just think it's insane that from those two football games, he made 700 bucks. He may have, inside league information. He may have, connections with other teams that he's playing against or he's played against in the past. He knows the offenses that teams run. He knows what counters what players and you just think like to the average person, is it really fair to them to have to go up against someone like Calvin Ridley who has that insider knowledge? And it's not like he's just an expert like myself or Ethan or Matt G, but it's he's actually played the game and he knows what's going on. I just think it's a bit unfair.
Yeah, and it really plays into like the rights and like the responsibilities of these athletes because they obviously possess the right to play these games. They have so much talent and they work so hard, but they have a responsibility to protect the integrity of the game. And when people like Calvin Ridley and Phil Mickelson do this, like they participate in all this betting, it really takes away from that. And it takes away from the game itself. And it's just not good for the sports.
I think something that's really interesting to think about is, Ethan, if you think back to like 5 years ago or something,
Sure.
especially in the NFL and NBA, right? Sports betting, it was like very kind of, it wasn't very supported by them, right? And now
Right.
you go to an NBA game, go to an NFL game, you watch one, all you see is DraftKings, FanDuel, Sleeper, like all you see is just I think that's a big part about why these companies have been so successful recently is because of the advertising and how they're able to pull in these consumers. I mean, I just think it's really interesting, kind of the celebrities and everything they use. What do you guys think of that?
Wait, can we pause?
I am a sponsor from DraftKings, and I'm going to be talking to you about why you should gamble. As we all know, sports gambling is one of the easiest ways to make money. We have deals like only place $5 in, and guess what? You get $200 of free bets to place on any game, whether it's cricket, badminton, baseball, basketball, rugby. We even have curling now. Any of these you can just gamble on. You can make your money. It's the easiest way to make money. It's the fastest money making method in the United States. And let me tell you, a bunch of celebrities use this. We have celebrities like Kevin Hart, LeBron James, all on our team, all with us to help us grow this amazing way to make money. So please gamble. It's worth it. Yeah, and to your point, Matchy, I was actually just watching the Celtics game a few days ago. Devastating game, by the way. And
I want to
and
talk
guess
about
what
it.
I see? At halftime. Not only do I see the props for the halftime over under, Celtics winning by 20, winning by 30 because they were up by so much. But also, I see LeBron James, I see Kevin Hart, I hear the little DraftKings jingle, and I'm just wondering why is this being shown? You have little kids watching this. You have 13-year-old, 12-year-old kids watching this. You have people who shouldn't be gambling, who aren't even allowed to gamble because they're not old enough, watching this. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, if we're marketing this to kids of such a young audience, it's not even like it's just not really okay. Like, they're just going to be attached at a young age, and it's just going to lead to more and more issues progressively as they get older and older, as they get addicted and they gamble more and more. They're gambling paycheck after paycheck. They're losing money because gambling, let's be real, it's not an easy thing to win at. Once you start, it's hard to stop. And we're gonna hear more about that from our special guest, but I just think it's appalling that the fact that they're marketing it to such young
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I very much agree. Because like it's projected that by the 2030s, the gambling industry will be worth over $180 billion. And they really don't care about the well-being of their consumers. They're really just a profit-based organization and industry. And they're trying to do whatever they can to make money, to maximize profit. And whether that's at the risk of others or not, they don't really care.
And to your point, Noah, about the whole advertisement thing. So the other night I was having trouble falling asleep, so I decided to watch a Paul George Smooth compilation. And in the
Okay.
middle of my watching the video, I saw an advertisement for one of these sports betting books with Allen Iverson in it. And everyone knows it was of his famous we talking about practice speech, and they kind of use that to talk about practice bets and prop bets and how they kind of market these bets that like yeah, technically we're giving you this money to put on it, so it's technically risk free, and that's how I think a big part of how they're drawing these people in is by making it seem like, oh, well, we're giving you some stuff to start out with, so you can bet and not even have to worry about losing your own money. It's kind of like fishing, right? It's like how they reel them in. Um, I think that's just something that's really interesting to note. Um, just because like every sports gambling, it's everywhere now, and I think going back to the topic of the athletes, it's not just the athletes that are kind of being affected by sports gambling. A lot of people are saying now with some of these professional leagues, especially the NBA and NFL, some people are saying Vegas is making some calls to refs and, maybe even refs got bets on the games. And there was actually been cases of this. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, and actually, just before we go into that, I just wanted to kind of briefly go over another big time celebrity who's been influencing the sports gambling. Obviously, we discussed Kevin Hart, we discussed LeBron James, but you look at somebody as influential as Drake, who's not just a U.S. figure, but he's known worldwide. he is a major majority owner in stocks of the gambling company's stake. And you see on his
Yep.
Instagram story, every UFC fight night, every Quidditch night, you see all these things. You see Drake is posting bets, $100,000 bets, $200,000 bets, $500,000 bets on Sean O'Malley, on Harry Potter, on all these things. And guess what? It's not even his money he's gambling with. He's gambling with the company's money because he's just advertising it. And people fail to understand that. They're like, "Oh, you know, Drake's betting on this game. Let's bet against him, obviously because of the Drake curse." But he's not even losing money whether he wins or loses. He's not gaining money, he's not losing money, whether he plays roulette, whether he plays roulette, whatever it is. He's not losing any money. And I just think just to your point, it's another celebrity that's just influencing other people.
I agree. I agree. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, and then going off of your point about the ref, obviously we learned about Tim Donaghy, a huge name in the basketball world. He was a ref for 13 years, and he was caught in a gambling scandal. Matt G, do you have anything to add about that scandal?
I mean, well, technically he's the only one, not the only one, but one of the biggest names that's been caught, It just kind of goes to show that maybe, sure, he's the only one that's been caught in the act, but it's very clear that, especially through some of these leagues, that he's probably not the only one. And it's really impacting kind of not only the culture around the game, but the integrity of the game. And kind
Yeah,
of
very
like,
good point, Matchy.
you sit there and wonder, and
Very
sometimes
good
you see
point,
these
Matt G.
bad calls, and you're like, what happened to the game I love?
Yeah,
And I just think that sports betting, some people think it adds a new dimension to sports. I believe it removes a dimension from sports.
yeah.
And it kind of
Perchance
brings,
one could say, "Oh, go on, go on."
so I just kind of want to bring up how it kind of brings up the idea of like, how are corporations deciding what is for sale and what we are supposed to be able to buy, and kind of like how something as simple as downloading an app off the App Store could potentially cause such a big issue in someone's life if not handled properly.
Yeah, as I was gonna say, perchance one could say that there's a lot of corruption at hand with all this gambling and stuff, and a lot of inequalities being brought up as well. Because as I mentioned earlier, the gambling industry is going to be over 180 billion dollars, and a lot of people are losing their houses, like their lives, pretty much all their money on these bets. And it raises the question, like you said, what's really for sale here, and can they really put all this up for sale?
That
Yeah, and that's a good point from you, Matchy, and another great point from you, Ethan, as well. But you look at all these people who are kind of stuck in this cycle of gambling and gambling and gambling, and you just have to feel bad for them. Like, obviously, it's an addiction. It's actually one of the fastest growing addictions in the world,
Yep.
mostly in the US, obviously, because this is where it's most prominent. But in the world as a whole, you see more and more people gambling, their paycheck. I've seen people gamble their house. They've sold their house and gambled that money. They've gambled their life insurance on whether it's a roulette, whether it's a Celtics game, things like that. You just have to think, when is it going to stop? When are people going to understand that although the US is making money on this, like it's not okay. It's not a feasible way to make money. It can be a fun side hobby for a little bit, but if you're losing money, you need to know when it's time to stop.
And I believe that's a perfect way to kind of transition, as there's been a lot of people that believe that sports gambling is a sustainable income because these companies have people that work for them that use the company money to try and push these bets and kind of are professional bettors. And you know, I think we know someone that was kind of at that point in their life where they were someone that kind of gambled every day and thought it was going to be their source of income, but just learned it wasn't reliable. What do you have to say, Noah?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna call him up right now, and we are gonna talk to him in just a second. All right, I am here with our special guest now, Doug the Degenerate.
Hi, I'm Doug.
Doug,
What's up, Doug?
I just want to
Hey,
briefly
Doug.
go over a
Hey.
couple questions. Obviously, I've heard you've had some family issues because of your gambling addiction. Do you want to just kind of go into that briefly?
I think I can. I think I have the strength today.
Go for it.
Well, first, I started with my wife. Happily married for 3 months. She knew that I had a gambling issue. And I vowed in our marriage to stop my issues and to seek help. And I think a week in, we had a prenup signed, and uh, I faked the signature and I took all of her money. Um, After I put a parlay on the Super Bowl for the Gatorade color, I
Won that,
lost
by
all
the
my
way.
money. I lost all my money. Tough, tough to talk about.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for your
I'm
Yeah,
so
experience.
sorry to hear that.
But because
I'm super sorry to hear that.
thank you. Because of my addiction, I actually decided to take money from my wife's account, little by little, and I put them on
Wow.
small parlays. But it just got to the point where I was taking large sums of money from her account. We were talking 15,000, 35,000, and eventually, she had no more money. We were getting letters in the mail from our banks telling us that our accounts have run dry. And that didn't stop me because, money is tangible, and I thought that I could get money quick through betting, even if I lost, because I thought I can make it up the next day. And I just saw my reward go up, and I saw, okay, I can make my money back. And, you know, I lost all my money. I lost all my wife's money, and it's really tough to talk about. We had to get rid of one of our kids. We couldn't afford to send him to school.
It's
So
unbelievable. I can't
I'm,
even
I'm
imagine.
sorry.
we
This is
Oh
hard
no,
to hear about.
this is absolutely
we
terrible.
lost
Now
a kid.
I just wanna ask you, when you see a logo like this, what kind of pain does that bring you?
Uh,
Well, I had a son named. It's gonna be hard to do this. I had a son named Gerald, and we had to get rid of him.
I can't
When
even
I see
imagine the
that
pain
logo,
that you're going through.
when I see that logo, I think of him. I think of all the mornings I'd wake up.
And place a
so
10 leg parlay, right?
I have a question,
I,
Doug.
I would go to my computer after I dropped him off to school, and that's when I would place the parlay.
Mr. Doug,
Right.
I have a question. I was brought to tears by your I was simply brought to tears by your story. The other day I was looking on Craigslist and I think I recognized your
Is it my father-in-law?
yes, it's your father-in-law.
I'm not proud of that, but it had to be done.
Yeah,
I
you
had the
shouldn't be.
IRS knocking on my door. I had police voicemails telling me that if I didn't
Right.
get the money soon, I was going to be put in prison and my wife would be sentenced to prison as well. And I would
Well, it
lose
looks like you're already
Geronimo,
there.
my second kid. All right. So when I
Yeah.
saw a money grab opportunity, yes, I put my father-in-law on Craigslist. There was a lot of buyers, and I thought that I could make enough money to the point where I could continue to satisfy my addiction and gamble.
Now, just briefly, Doug, I do remember, I think it was only 5 months ago. Obviously, I'm here in my massive mansion in the Bahamas. I remember you were
So
my
am I.
neighbor, and now I see you in the slums. I just want to understand, just give me a ballpark figure, over under around 500 million in in earnings,
You
in
know a
money
lot about over
lost
under,
because of
Doug.
gambling.
Well, I mean, Noah, for the 2 months that I lived in that, it was beautiful, and honestly, it makes me start to think of my son Gerald that I lost again. But seriously, um, I mean, I started that tech company up, and it did real well, and then I sold it for $7 billion. And I donated 500 million of that to an education foundation. But I think it's fair to say that over $6 billion was lost gambling. Half of that was my
Oh,
wife's.
wow.
I mean,
Yeah, when you put it into perspective like that, it just really shows the how bad an addiction can be.
And I mean,
And the only thing I can do is really just feel sorry for her.
Noah,
I
isn't that
appreciate that.
the Perchance podcast, Noah? To kind of help people. Doug's story, personally, I remember hearing it for the first time. It tore me apart. I was devastated. I saw Gerald on the street with a cup asking people for spare change, and I was like, man,
Yeah, and
No,
I was brought to tears. And I
I
think that's
can't
why we
even.
set the Perchance podcast up so we could really help people break out of this addiction, this cycle. And
yeah,
wait, what's your background?
and I just want to say, Tim, Doug, sorry. Obviously, we want to help out at the Perchance podcast. We're all about being ethical here. We heard about
Thank
your
you.
story. We really just wanted to help you
Instead
out.
of helping
so
me,
what I
can
did
you
for
help
you,
my wife get out of jail and take
I
my
can help
son
you with that
Gerald
as
off
well.
the street
We
and
will help your
find
wife.
my other son
And
Geronimo?
we'll help your wife
We will
first.
help Geronimo.
That was actually my plan from the start. What
Thank
we're
you.
gonna be doing is we raised over $400 through our GoFundMe and connections
Thank you.
with
Thank you.
companies.
Thank
And what I did for you is I put it all on a 6-leg parlay. I have Los Angeles Rams, I have Milwaukee Bucks, and I have Cleveland Browns versus Kansas City Chiefs. And because of from help from all our expert bettors, we were able to raise $35,000
$35,000.
in money.
35,000.
And I know that only covers about half of the bill for your wife, but I will personally pay for the other 35,000. And we're also gonna try and buy your son back from the Mexican cartel.
May have to win him off a roulette game, but we will do it.
We will try our best.
My sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never
This has been the
know
Perchance podcast. I want to
how
thank all of you for watching, and hopefully we can save more addicts like Doug from their gambling addiction. Remember, don't gamble; it's not ethical, and just please make the right choice.
No.
Remember your Christian morality. Remember all the ethics that you learned in
Remember-
Mr. Faze's class.
Remember what is for sale and what isn't. Thank you, Mr. Fizz.